What's up YouTube? Welcome to today's tutorial on the final part, hopefully, of the skybox in Nuke. So last time we left off, we made this model in Blender when this opens. That was really just a skybox projected. And you can't see it here because the texture hasn't loaded, but I'm not going to do that right now because that's not part of the tutorial. But what we're going to be doing is we are going to be going into Nuke and actually finishing this tutorial. So go ahead and open up Nuke, full screen it, and bring in your footage, whatever that may be. The reason I'm really late on this tutorial, where is it? Is because it took me forever to get footage that would track, and I just screwed something up. Okay, hold on. I think this is the footage. Please work, please work, please work. I think it's working. Okay, there we go. And as you can see, if I scrub through this and hit H to full size it, it's really just it's just a nodal pan because for some reason it wasn't working when I did freeform of my driveway. Just kind of spinning around. This works better if you actually lower the brights or raise the brights or whatever the term is for it on your camera, but I'm just using a camera that's not too good, so therefore there were some clouds in the sky, but you didn't really catch them because of the exposure on my camera. Although, yeah, on higher quality cameras that might be an issue, but it should work just fine. But the first thing we're going to do is we're going to drop in a camera tracker because we need to track the scene. And everything should be pretty much default. I mean, you can tweak it. This isn't really a camera tracking tutorial. I mean, when you go to tracking, you might preview features. You might want to crank up the detection threshold or the number of features, but I think this is good. Actually, I'm going to go up to like 200, just because that's what I normally use. And then go to solver. I don't know what my focal length is on the handy cam because I just shot this using a handy cam. Unknown lens distortion because I know I have a little lens distortion, but I'm not quite sure. And that should be it. And then just hit track features, and it should go through the whole thing forward and back and track everything. And then when it's done, it's going to track backwards. Just get a double track and just make sure everything's right. Okay, and after it tracks, scrub through it, make sure it looks good. Why is it not? Okay, there we go. And I know these settings work with this footage, so after you scrub through it, make sure everything seems aligned, take out any bad trackers by just clicking on them and deleting them. Go into the camera tracker, hit solve camera. Now this is going to take a little longer because it's actually sort of creating a camera from it. And yeah, so now solved camera, and make sure, actually now you should scrub through and make sure there's no bad tracks, which there shouldn't be. I mean, orange tracks are okay. And then hit create scene. Now I really don't like these default nodes because it's a mess. Squares and lines, and don't really like them. And camera track point cloud, you don't need that. You don't need the point cloud or really the camera tracker anymore. But I'm going to go over here and just drag it off to the left and then drag my arrow back to the thing. So yeah, we don't need a camera tracker, but we'll just leave it as it is. If you want to delete it, you can, but the point cloud's okay if you want to leave it. Just organizing my stuff. You know, circles don't snap to squares. It drives me crazy. Kind of an OCD thing, I guess. Okay, now we are going to drop in a read geometry. And actually, you know what? I'm going to just unplug this. We don't need this, so you can just throw it up here if you want. But yeah, it just makes it easier on everything. So type in read geo, or I'm pretty sure you can just drop in the OBJ file that or the FBX that we exported. And then, yeah, so double click on the read geo, make sure that's open, and then navigate to your desktop or wherever it's saved. Skybox, that's the thing, and that should be Skybox FBX, open. And now if we look at it in 3D view, use this, by the way, I don't think I've covered 3D view in any of my past tutorials. Use the scroll wheel to zoom in and out, Alt, left mouse button to spin around, a lot like Cinema 4D if you're familiar with that. So we have some of our point clouds in here, which don't really look that good. I'm actually gonna click it and hit D, actually disable the camera tracker because we don't want to see that. Or you might want to, so you can leave it if you want, but I don't. So I'm gonna click on it and hit D if you don't know that already. But we have our camera here, and it's animated, looks good. But our skybox doesn't look good at all. It's just gray. So, well, first off, drop your read geo into your scene just so we don't forget to do that. And then, where is it? Okay, go back into your skybox folder, open up, or grab the texture, and drag it. Why isn't this open? No, Nuke. This is getting ridiculous. Now, drag that in. Now, remember, this is a gigantic texture, so it's going to take quite a lot longer to like process everything. That was actually pretty fast. I wasn't expecting it. But now here's the problem. Blue on the timeline means keyframes, and you can see that it exports all keyframes. Now you can enable in Blender don't export animation, and I think it'll fix this, but a lot of the times, even if you do have animation, it'll still affect you. Now, say we're looking through this camera. I'm not going to set up a renderer right now because just bear with me here. It's great because if I go like this, it's just like spinning a camera around. But if my camera moves left to right, we don't want that parallax right there. That's going to be horrible because the sky doesn't actually move when you move your head left and right a little bit. So what we're going to do is, well, if you were to just double click on this read geo and then do uniform scale a bunch, that's great, but then when you go, actually it's staying, but when you close or open the file or make any more changes, it'll go back down like that. So we don't want to do that. We want to leave uniform scale at 1. Why is it doing this? And then add a transform geo node right after the read. And that's going to allow us to edit it as a whole, all frames. We're actually going to set the uniform scale to like 1000. Oops, one more 0. And as you can see, we still get the rotation that we want, but now if you pan left and right, there's absolutely no change that you get. Actually, there is, but I don't want to turn it up anymore. That's good enough for the purpose of this tutorial. But now we want to add a renderer because we can't, if you look at the viewer node, we can't actually connect to the scene. But if you look in tab, we can't see anything because it's not being rendered out. So connect the viewer back, and we're going to just type in Scanline Renderer. And to hook this up, you just hook the object scene into the scene, you hook the camera into the camera, and then if you say, like if I go into, if I put this on my second view, right here, you can see you get the camera right here, which is good. It's good to have it as your camera, but which is kind of angly. I don't know why. We'll fix that later. But anyways, so see how it's black? If we say wanted to render on top, we just connect that and it would render the skybox with the background behind it, but we're not going to use that because we're going to render this behind our background. Actually, you know what? Probably wouldn't hurt. Okay. Actually, do that. That is probably what I want to do. Oh, okay. Connect background to camera, or to the footage. Organize it a little bit. So there we go. That's as organized as it's gonna get. That's all we want. We want the background in there just in case it screws up. But then what we're gonna do is actually delete that point. Sorry if I'm getting a little slow here. I totally lost my train of thought. And then what we're going to do is we're going to forget about this side for a little bit and start messing with this and actually making our track map. So as always, first off, add a saturation and set this as your secondary view and connect that. And drop the saturation to 0 because we want it black and white. You can mess with the color correction a little bit if you want to, but we don't really need to. And then add a gamma. And now what we're going to do is we're going to drag the gamma down until we get it something like that. Now remember, you're trying to hold on to as much detail here as possible because that's how it interacts. You want a bunch of different shades. You don't want to. That posterize thing that I did last time was just a really easy way to get black and white, but you really don't. You really want to stay away from that. And you don't worry about anything down here because we'll just mask this out. Shouldn't be too big of a problem. And then add a histogram, as always, histogram. Not Instagram, histogram. And drop the contrast down. And then you see we get this kind of gray fog. Drop the whites down a little bit too. Actually, hold on, let's see if we can bring the blacks up. That's what the range is. I'm really bad at histograms. It can either help something or it can screw something up. Actually, I'm trying to eliminate as much of that fog as I possibly can. That actually looks pretty good. If you bring the contrast actually up a little bit. I'm trying to just get rid of all the individual noise. But now we're going to add a Roto into here because we want to get rid of all this. So go to frame 1. This is the first thing you want to do. Clear the thing. And then open your Roto because we don't want all the keyframes. We just want to see our Roto frames. Click that, this little thing over here, and drag out a very simple, not complex mask. The viewport's freezing again. Okay. And just do this. Now go over here to the color and just set this to black. Whoops, that's the alpha. Didn't want to do that. I want to set the color to black. And you can see it just blends in and we are totally good. But you're going to need to animate this, so I just go through, skip a bunch of frames. Because you will notice it if it's clipping over where you don't want it to clip. It's definitely something that's very, very, very obvious. Because you end up getting like white spots in the sky where you don't want white spots in the sky. This is very rough. I mean, the odds of you having to do it a lot more complicated are pretty good. I'm just doing this fast because this is a tutorial and I don't want to spend all day on this. And plus it's not my job. So if you're getting paid for this, spend as much time as you need. definitely right here you're gonna have to. Again, all this footage, if you just want to mess with my footage and use the exact same settings I am, although you won't really learn, but if you want to use the settings that I'm using, or the footage, it'll all be in the description after this tutorial goes up. Let's see. Probably should add another point here. Dang it, I accidentally created a feather thing. I don't want that to be feathered. I'll delete that. No, I didn't want to delete the point. Dang it. Stop. Listen to me, Nuke. Listen to what I tell you to do. Okay, so that's pretty good. We're not gonna keyframe the entire thing, but if you exit out, you can see that everything we need, actually not everything we need to do that. Should be pretty much covered. Anyways, we're gonna get some errors. Just tweak it how you want to. You want it to just pretty much be black and white. And certain things like gutters, like you can see right here, those are okay to be transparent because they're gonna be reflecting the color of the sky mostly. So therefore, you're not really gonna notice it that much. In fact, it can actually enhance your image. But now, as we did before in my other sky replacement tutorial, we're going to add a shuffle copy and connect it to Roto. Actually, we're gonna add a blur in here because we might need to use this later. And then drag shuffle copy. Go into your first viewport and set shuffle copy to, let's see, alpha. I think you just set it to red for this first one. Okay, so apparently I just set it to red in my last one. There we go. That fixes it, and you can uncheck these too. Yeah, you want this square to be red. And if you hit A on your keyboard, you'll be able to view the alpha. And I screwed this up because you want these two checked also. So yeah, that looks really good. That's now our alpha channel. So you want to go invert because we want to invert the alpha. And you can see it messes it up because it's inverting all colors. You just want to do alpha. And now you can see the alpha is everything except the sky. Which actually, that looks really cool. I should do a whole video around like night vision or something. And then again, add a pre-multiply. If I'm moving I feel like I'm moving really slow, but if I'm moving too fast at any point, it's because I already covered this in my other tutorial. But now we need to merge these two, which that kind of looks screwed up. Okay, so you can see if you look at the pre-multiply, it's all black and all that. So add a blur, or go into our blur, crank the blur up just a little bit. It can be a little fuzzy. Customize this. That's the most important thing I can possibly tell you. Customize this to your footage. But because the sky we're replacing it with has color to it, you don't need to necessarily get rid of all the color, which this is actually pretty good because that detail I'm not going to be able to get out with my camera. You might be able to if you're shooting on like one of those $60,000 rigs, but for the sake of this tutorial and the sake of not going crazy, I'm going to just do this. So hit M for merge. Nope. I don't want to merge it here. Why is it doing this? I want background to be connected to there. And then drop a merge in here and select A. Put the A to Scanline Render. And organize it. Now go into your merge and we're going to set this to under. And now you can see it's kind of back here, but then we get this white over here. That is because, for some reason, I don't know why, the camera is like sideways. Anyways, on the merge, if you look in one, we're actually merging something that's a lot bigger into this. A lot bigger, so we can do just transform. and should be able to just go in here. Where's the thing? And drag. Nope. Well, okay, take out the background. That's the first thing. Just take out the background. We don't need it. And now bring the background to like this. And now we have a lot of stuff to work with. It's still tracked. Remember, it's still tracked. You just need to bring it like that. But it's still way too blue. No matter what you want to say, it's way too blue for what we're doing. Our sky that I shot with is kind of white. So we're going to go to, oops, not saturation. Drop in a saturation. Just connect this. And then drop the saturation a little bit, probably. Not too much, just a little bit. And then drop in a gamma. Or exposure, whichever one. I find gamma works better. And boost the gamma until it looks okay. So that's sort of good. I'm gonna go back into my blur, mess with some stuff. So if you crank up the blur, it kind of blends in definitely a lot more. Actually, that looks really good. Okay, so yeah, crank up the blur. That definitely fixes a lot. But as you can see, if you go back, and if I were to drag this over and go back and forth, whoops, 2, 1. If I were to go back and there we go. If I were to go back and forth between the two, you can see instead of just a plain white sky, you get a little bit more clouds. It's a little bit more interesting. Again, if I kind of shot this on an overcast day, so I couldn't do much with a really blue sky. I wish I could have, but I can't. I should have definitely though. And yeah, you're gonna have to play with it. But if you look, it's tracked. Mine's a little screwed up. But if you were to move your camera left or right and do like a free camera, and track it, it'll do the same thing. One last thing we have to do to actually make this is my camera isn't again that amazing, so I get a lot of blur, and I didn't really want to do that. So go back in, disconnect this, and now what we're going to do is we're going to drag all this down and go vector blur. And set this to all, and then UV channels motion. And now if you disable that, you can see it just blurs it in the direction you're moving. You can turn this way up if you want to. I'm going to set it to about there because my camera has a lot of blur to it. And then one last thing to do is write it. So write. And then, yeah, you can. I'm not going to go into writing it. That'll be another tutorial because there are problems with it right now that I'm having. But that's it for today's tutorial. I finally got around to it. It took me a while. But as you can see, we made a nicer sky. We did all this stuff. And this sky, if you apply color correction, the sky texture we made, it's really easy to do. And it'll fit into anything. You can, if you make the blue into like a darker gray, you can actually make it like storm clouds. You can do whatever you want with this texture, and it's pretty universal. So see you in 2 weeks. I probably won't be doing another Nuke tutorial. I'll do something a little more interesting. But other than that, yeah, see you.